able to do that.
I think it's recording. I'm going to put it on pause.
Okay, welcome to the Marketing, Regulatory, and Legislative Subcommittee, February 2nd, 12 p.m. Let's get started with the, let's call the meeting to order and let's do roll call.
Chair Patino,
Here,
Vice Chair Harrison,
Here.
Member Hernandez, Member Click is alternate Munro.
It's Monroe, and I'm not the alternate. I'm it, and then the alternate would be Gina Bonanno,
Okay,
and I'm here.
thank you. Member Tiedemann,
Here.
and it's alternate Tessa.
Here.
Thank you. There is
okay,
a quorum. Thank you.
great, thank you. Okay, next, public comment. Do we have any public comment?
At this time, if you would like to speak on any items not on the agenda, you have 3 minutes to address the committee members. Please raise your hand at this time if you'd like to speak on an item not on the agenda. I see no hands raised.
Okay, thank you, Laurie. And next is item number 4, update on regulatory items of interest to the EBCE. Who'll be doing that?
I'm Melissa Brand here.
Okay. Go for it, Melissa.
Great. If I can have the slide deck pulled up, please. All
Is
right.
that- Everybody see that?
All right. If you could move to the next slide, please. Today, I'm going to be talking about 2 different regulatory proceedings. The Net Energy Metering 3.0, as well as the PG&E 2022 Energy Resource Recovery Account, or ERA forecast proceeding. Next slide, please. So I wanted to give you an update on where we stand on NEM 3.0. As you are aware, the Commission issued a proposed decision on December 13th. And we were very unsatisfied with this decision for a variety of reasons. I think most noticeably because the PD would establish a grid participation charge for NEM customers, which would come to average of $52 a month for your typical residential NEM customer. It would also provide export compensation to those NEM customers at a much lower rate than today, specifically at the CPUC's Avoided Cost Calculator, or ACC rate. So EBCE has been very active in the proceeding to date. We sent the board's NEM resolution to the CPUC commissioners, and we did that via a written ex parte notice. I would note that if any of your cities want to send any comments on NEM, please do coordinate with us, because those would also be considered written ex partes and have to be filed as such, and I can help your staff walk through that process. We also filed comments formally in the proceeding jointly with San Diego Community Power, and that was on the 7th of January. And we made a number of arguments, but 3, I think, key arguments that we made were that the grid participation charge would violate federal law, particularly because it discriminates against one technology type, being distributed generation. So we believe that the NEM reform should not include a grid participation charge. To be fair to all customers, we said that all customers, including distributed generation, should pay all non-bypassable charges. So today there are some non-bypassable charges that NEM customers do not pay, and that's been a source of a lot of criticism. They're not large dollars, but there is that exemption there that we said should not exist. Just like customers shouldn't be treated differently and penalized with a grid participation charge, everyone should pay their fair share of non-bypassable charges. And then finally, one of the proposals that had been prevalent in the proceeding was a proposal by Sierra Club on export compensation. And what they do is they kind of do a walk down per gigawatt of installed solar over the next years from an electrification compensation rate, which is a much higher, down to eventually reaching the avoided cost calculator rate. But it's in 1 gigawatt tranches, and 10%, it goes 10% down towards the avoided cost calculator rate per tranche. So it's a little bit complicated, but essentially the key point there is that it is a way of gradually moving from a higher electrification rate down to where the commission wants to be, but that gives the industry time to adjust. It's not something that's just, you know, from one day to the next. We have a very drastic change, which could really hurt future solar and storage in the state.
Melissa, I have a quick question.
Sure.
I'm going to wait till the end. I'll wait till the end. Go ahead and go. I'll just wait till the end.
Okay, sure. So we also conducted some oral ex parte meetings with the commissioner's offices and highlighting all of these points. I was very pleased to find that the commissioner's staff had actually read through our comments. I would say that's not necessarily common. So they were very well versed in where we stood on the issues, and we could have a good dialogue about why we felt that our points made sense for the reform. I will say that it was also communicated to us more than once that there's a new commission. Essentially, we have two new commissioners, a new president and then another new commissioner. Commissioner Guzman-Aceves departed in December after being the sponsoring commissioner behind this proposed decision. And then President Batcher left as well. So it's a new commission. We don't know how on board they were with Guzman-Aceves's proposal or proposed decision. It seems, based on what we've been reading and hearing in the media and from the governor's office, that we should expect a significant rewrite of the proposed decision. At this point, the commission has postponed oral arguments. They were scheduled, but I think at this point they're waiting for the fifth commissioner to join and be available for those. So we're anticipating either a revised proposed decision, which would be a rewrite by the administrative law judge that issued the PD, or an alternate PD, which is where the commissioner, one of the commissioners, decides to do the rewrite. So at this stage, we don't actually know when the proposed decision will be voted on, or even if the proposed decision we've seen will be voted on. But we are just holding tight, awaiting some revisions and an updated schedule so that we can re-engage. I have another slide, but it's on a different proceeding, so perhaps this would be a good time to break for questions.
Yeah, let's do that. Okay, I see Member Harrison's hand up. You have a question?
Yes, Chair Patino, did you want to go first?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, okay, thanks. Two questions. We did send a letter objecting to the proceedings from our city council. Can you send some instructions about how you'd like to receive that, or what it is you need, Melissa, from us?
So certainly I can. I think the key point is that if you send something to the commission on an active proceeding, you're supposed to send a copy of it to the service list the same day. And some folks know that rule and others don't. So I just want to make sure everyone is informed about that rule because it's a very important rule.
Great. And then can you just give me a flavor of what a non-passable, bypassable charge is? And do we know dollar-wise of the $52 that it would be otherwise, what that dollar amount might look like?
I don't have a dollar figure. I know that in talking to a number of parties, they have indicated that it's a pretty low number. I've heard that both from solar parties as well as from some of the ratepayer advocates groups. So I don't know what the actual dollar number would be, but I know that it's fairly low. An example would be, though, there are some like wildfire fund costs that other customers pay for that NEM customers do not. I'd have to pull up my list to give you, there's I think 3 charges or so that NEM customers are not paying. But the public purpose program is an example of non-bypassable charges that customers pay, and that funds energy efficiency, demand response, CARE is another non-bypassable charge funding the discount for low-income customers. So non-bypassable charges tend to be kind of social policy costs, if you will.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, does anybody else have any questions? Okay, no, my question is, and just your opinion, how much of the Sierra Club's proposal, or if at all, if any, do you think might be written into the if there's a rewrite?
It's a great question. It's really hard to predict. What I will say is that we saw a number of parties coalescing around the Sierra Club's proposal for the first time in comments on the proposed decision. So some of the solar parties were supportive, Sierra Club, of course, and the CCAs. So it felt that there was a nice group highlighting the benefits of Sierra Club's proposal being much more of a middle of the road proposal.
Okay, thank you. There's no other questions. Let's go on to the next slide.
Okay. So wanted to just give you a brief update on the 2022 ERA forecast proceeding. So this proceeding, as a reminder, is important for two reasons for EBCE. One is that this is the proceeding that sets the bundled generation rate for PG&E customers who are not our customers. And it also too sets the power charge and difference adjustment rate. So we are always participating in this proceeding to make sure that that PG&E is doing the math correctly, that the bundled generation rate is fair, and this is really important since we base our rates off of PG&E's generation rate. So that proceeding was delayed. Usually you would see new rates going into effect January 1, but at this point we are on track to see rates go into effect March 1. And I think very notably here, the bundle generation rate for PG&E is increasing very substantially, about 30%, whereas the PCIA is going to decrease substantially, about 40%. And so, you know, as a reminder, PCA going down is good, bundle generation rate for PG&E going up gives us more headroom. And so, but it also means that that if we are tied to PG&E rates, our customers will also be seeing rate increases on the generation side, but then decreases on PCIA. So these changes will help offset some of the negative impacts of the 2021 ERA forecast rates. And we will have more details about the exact rate impacts once we get the CPUC's decision. And the commission is scheduled to vote on this on February 10th. So stay tuned for more details. But in general, this is good news for us.
Great, look forward to that. Any questions from the board, the committee? No. Do we have any questions from the public on this? I don't see any.
Oh, I'm sorry, there is.
Well, there is. Okay.
Yeah,
Let's promote that person.
yeah, Gina Rose.
Okay, let's give him 3 minutes.
I am curious, how do I tell if I'm a PG&E customer or an East Bay Energy customer? It's confusing to me.
Who wants to take on that one?
I'm happy to do it. Hi, Gina. My name is Annie Henderson, and I'm our Vice President of Marketing and Account Services. So if you look at your bill, if you are an East Bay Community Energy customer, on approximately page 3, you will see that it says generation charges from East Bay Community Energy. And depending on which product or service you're on, you will see perhaps a Bright Choice discount line on there, as well as credits for a PCIA and a franchise fee charge that cancel out those charges on the page that has the PG&E charges. On the PG&E page, you will also see a generation credit because they have billed you as though you're receiving all services from them, and then they back out the generation portion of that cost as a generation credit. And so you can compare that generation credit to what you are seeing from EBCE charges.
Okay, so let me see if I really understand you. So I have a generation, okay, I'll pay attention to what you said and go look at my bill. It's just been very confusing to me.
I would also recommend that you call our call center. Our customer service representatives can actually, if you're our customer, pull up your bill and walk you through very specifically where to find this information.
Yeah, and that information to contact EBCE is at ebce.org. So, okay, thank you, Gina. Okay, if that's it, that was just informational. So let's go, let's move on to the marketing and account service update. Who will be handling that one?
That'll be me.
Oh, okay, Annie. Go
Still
for it.
me. Okay. So as we're pulling up the presentation, it starts off a little sideways, but we'll move into the correct orientation on the second. Okay, the PDF was sideways, but it looks like our PowerPoint is okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So it's okay. So on slide 2, please. What I wanted to present to you today is really an overview of things that are happening, not just in marketing, but our full department, which is really marketing, account services, and public engagement. So we'll kind of do a high level view and then narrow in on some of the 4 items listed here. Next slide, please. So there's quite a bit happening in the first half of 2022. The biggest thing as we moved into the new year for our team was the Brilliant 100 sunset, that being the 100% carbon-free product that a few of our cities were defaulted onto, and others had their municipal accounts or voluntary opt-ups onto the Brilliant 100 service. So we closed that product, and then the cities of Albany residential customers in Dublin, customers in Hayward and Pleasanton were transitioned onto the Renewable 100 product. So now that it is February 2nd, that is complete. And then we'll see, we have more to come in March when Berkeley and San Leandro residential customers only are also transitioned to the Renewable 100 product. In January, PG&E also ended their disconnection moratorium, but they have not actually begun disconnecting customers for non-payment. And that is largely because of this next item that we see under February. CAP funds are the California Arrearage Payment Plan. This is money from the state of California that is going towards unpaid bills, primarily for residential customers who were not able to pay their bills during a certain period during the pandemic. So those funds have been transferred over to PG&E, we are told. We are still waiting for those funds, roughly $8 million, to be transferred to us, and then we will be applying those as bill credits to customers in March. It has to be done by April 1. There will be that PG&E rate increase that Melissa referenced in her ERA forecast. There may be a decision by Stockton to join the JPA. I think that's probably unlikely to happen in March, and we'll go into some details about why and an overview of the timeline there. Also in March, we have AMP, which is the Arrearage Management Program. It's the first anniversary. So we have presented a number of times about AMP to the full board and to various committees. This is the payment plan by which eligible customers, if they entered onto this plan and they made their current payment, 1/12 of their previous unpaid balance is forgiven. So that by the end of 1 year, if you continue to pay on time with a few exceptions, your past due balance would be forgiven. So we're coming up to that 1 year mark. And so there's just a lot of billing operations that need to happen around that. And then we do have our Roots, which is the professional soccer team in the East Bay. Their season opener is in March. In April, we have the city of Tracy residential customers who are on a tiered rate going through their time of use transition. This has already happened in Alameda County, and I'll give you an update on how that looks. We'll also be asking the board in April to approve any requests from cities to change their default products. That would not be implemented until October. I'll speak more to that. We have our annual NEM true up in April each year. The termination fee will begin in our newest member cities, Newark, Pleasanton, and Tracy. So this is 1 year since their mass enrollment. So this will be anyone that decides to opt out and go back to PG&E. Residential, it's $5 fee. For commercial, it's a $25 fee that had been waived for the first year of service. We'll also be doing our solicitation and granting of hyperlocal sponsorships in April. Coming into May, so Tracy is transitioning to the time of use for residential customers in April, but in May, we're already hitting the 1 year anniversary of this happening in Alameda County. So we will need to be doing an analysis for bill protection, which means anyone that was part of the default onto the new time of use rate who stayed on it for 12 months, we will do an analysis to see, did they end up pay more than they would have on a tiered rate? And then we will be issuing a credit for the difference. So that will also be happening on the PG&E side for their transmission and distribution costs. And this was part of the suggestion from the Public Utilities Commission. It was a suggestion for CCAs. It was required for the IOUs, but we'll be paying out those bill protection credits. And we have to also start thinking about, do we reinstate our own payment policies? So kind of looking back to that January item where PG&E's disconnection moratorium ended, we have also since, I believe it was March 2020, maybe April 2020, suspended our policies around customer non-payments. So we would not send them to collections and we would not send them back to PG&E at some point. We did just recently extend that until May, and then we need to decide, are we going to reinstate it and how will that happen? We wanted to push it off because we do have these CAP funds coming in. We also have efforts underway to work with local community-based organizations to do enrollment in the AMP repayment program as well, which just trying to get people on their best footing before we reinstate these types of policies around collections. In June, we'll have our annual rate setting, which typically for the last 1 to 2 years has just been, we've maintained the same value proposition, but this is something we always look at as part of our budget. We will also send out the joint rate mailer, and I have maybe NEM 3 launches, but I wrote this before realizing that they did not put this on the meeting for January 27th. So the earliest possible decision there is now into February, and so this will get pushed out even further. So a lot happening, a lot of information there, and now I'd like to go to the next slide and look at some details just for 4 different activities. So on the next slide, we'll see the Renewable 100 transitions. I'm just gonna, okay, there we go, perfect. So as I said, in January, we had residential and commercial customers in Albany, Hayward, and Pleasanton moving from Brilliant 100 to Renewable 100. In Dublin, they moved from Bright Choice, which had been their default, to Renewable 100, and that was only residential. We believe that there will be an item coming to the council to consider whether or not to do this for commercial. And then any residential or commercial customer who had voluntarily opted up to Brilliant 100 was transitioned to Bright Choice, and that was throughout our entire service territory to basically eliminate that product. In March, we'll see residential customers in Berkeley and San Leandro moving on to Renewable 100, with the exception of Care, FARA, and Medical Baseline customers. And that first notice actually already started going out. It went out, hard copy notices began mailing yesterday, and then we'll do email notices next week. In October, those same 2 jurisdictions, Berkeley and San Leandro, will be defaulting their commercial customers from Bright Choice onto Renewable 100. And we'll wait and see what happens with Dublin Commercial, and also Emeryville is potentially considering this. And I know Livermore is thinking about it, but I think we're longer way off on that decision. Next slide, please. So I did want to give a quick update on what we're seeing to date for Albany, Dublin, Hayward, and Pleasanton. This is all, I broke it out individually here since there's a bit of nuance for each location. Director Monroe, I see your hand up. Do you want me to pause here for a question? Oh, you're on mute.
Of course I'm on mute because aren't we all? I was just gonna respond to the Livermore's on a little longer timeline. We're trying to sync up with our climate action plan. So as we get the reports on that will be a little later in the year. So syncing up with that, then syncing up with EBCE will just take a little longer. So didn't mean to derail it, but
No worries.
thought it was quick information.
No problem. Thank you for the update.
So here you can see, I wanted to call out here a comparison to the only other jurisdictions in the state of California that have made these kind of mass product changes after initial enrollment. And that was down in the Clean Power Alliance CCA. So the cities of Malibu and Sierra Madre, they saw about a 0.5% opt out and about a 3% opt down. We are right in line with that opt out number. We're below 1% across the board, but we have a lot more customers choosing to opt down. I presented this at our last board meeting, and I'll repeat what I said there. I see this as a very good thing. It means that our customers are well informed and that they're making informed choices. So rather than opting out, they are choosing to take a discount on Bright Choice. And one potential reason for that could be that Malibu and Sierra Madre did this. It was pre-pandemic. So that kind of, small as it is, the discount to Bright Choice compared to Renewable 100 may be more significant to people at this point. So if we go to the next slide, this is a little wonky. It takes a minute to sort of figure out what it's saying, but it is just the differential in these numbers mapped out from early January to late January. So on the left, it's the opt-out numbers. We did see a bump up in Pleasanton, but your total opt-out numbers are still below 5%, which is great. It's lower than our overall average for EBCE territory, which is about 5.5. And then on the right is the opt-downs. We didn't see significant change from early to late January in those opt-down numbers, but you can see there's higher percentage of opt-down in Albany and Hayward, where customers were defaulted onto the Brilliant 100 product at initial enrollment in 2018. So next slide, please. Now I'm moving on to the next item, which was our time of use transition. And there's, again, a lot of numbers here to read through and process. What I wanted to do was just to show really that Alameda County is fairly closely following the trend of the rest of PG&E territory in terms of customers that chose to remain on a tiered rate and those that declined to transition. It's kind of the same thing, although the percentage on the E1 rate is higher than the decline to transition because that also includes ineligible and deferred customers. But then you'll see in the city of Tracy, the percentage of customers on that E1 tiered rate is 72%, much higher than what we're seeing in Alameda County because they have not yet gone through the default transition. So I would expect, based on what we're seeing throughout PG&E territory, what we saw in Alameda County, something fairly similar in terms of decline to transition and the percentage of customers staying on that E1. And those customers in the city of Tracy who do move to the time of use rate will also receive the bill protection, which we are, of course, about to process for our Alameda County customers. And I will just note, I don't think we have a Tracy rep on the call today, but in January last month, the first notification from PG&E about this time of use default was sent out to residential, the eligible residential customers in Tracy. It was not co-branded like we did in Alameda County because it is all of San Joaquin County plus all these other areas that you see next to that green square that says April 2022. It's they would have had to co-brand with so many different CCAs. I think there's 5 different CCAs that are covered there. And it would have been very confusing to a customer. So we worked with them and said, it's okay not to co-brand. It's just important that this information is getting to customers. So we will be doing some additional outreach to customers in Tracy, but PG&E has sort of their standard protocol that they've done for all of these waves throughout their service territory over the last 2 years. Next slide, please. The third highlight I wanted to call out is there is so much going on with customer debt repayment programs. This is a very special time, I think, in our history for the last 2 years, people being impacted in various ways due to the pandemic. So there has been a lot of interest on trying to figure out how to put people in a position to be able to pay for their use of electricity and gas. So the first one is the Disadvantaged Communities Green Tariff, which we call solar discount. So we did enroll about 1,500 customers in 2021, and this applies a 20% discount to those customers based on production from a PV facility that currently we are utilizing one that MCE developed. And I think in the future we'll look to develop our own projects. But we continue to enroll customers so we have a certain capacity, let's just call it 1,500 customers. As customers move out or close their accounts, we bring new ones in so that they can receive that additional discount. Their arrearage management plan, that was the one I talked about before, where every time a person pays the current balance, they get 1/12 of their past due balance forgiven. The percentage of income payment plan, and that one is also live. Those 2 first ones are live. Percentage of income payment plan is one that is not yet live. It is, I think, operationally a bit more complicated because you are basically saying you're putting a cap on the amount that a customer would pay based on their income as a percentage of their income, as the name implies. So we're starting to do some marketing to recruit customers into this. And Kelly Brezovec, who's on the call, has been working closely with PG&E and our backend service provider, SMUD, to figure out the billing operations. And then the last one is this California arrearage management, arrearage payment program, apologies. And that is the roughly $8 million that is coming from the state of California for our customers. Again, that's only residential. There basically weren't enough funds. They sort of tiered the customers and we expended all available funds on residential. So nothing was available for commercial, but those should be applied to bills by April 1st. And then the last item to focus on, one more slide, please, is the new community inclusion, which we're looking at really focused on Stockton. There's the possibility of San Joaquin County. But essentially in January, we started working with Stockton. We've requested some additional data from PG&E to do an analysis. Initially, staff in Stockton thought they might be able to take something to City Council in February. I think that's probably not realistic given that we had to ask for additional data because of variability over the last 2 years in residential electricity use. There was then, if staff went in February, then March, they would be hearing the ordinance, doing the hearings for the ordinance in March and April and May. And then we would bring that to our board. The dates that are absolutely certain is that if we want to start service by 2024, we need to submit an implementation plan addendum to the CPUC by the end of 2022, because you have that 1-year wait period. So the dates in February, March, all the way up to just December are in flux, but we know that if we want, again, to meet the 2024 service timeline, we need to have all these steps done by December 2022. And I see a couple hands, and this is my last slide. So I'll wrap it up.
Okay, thank you very much. And let's go, I saw member Harrison's hand up first, so let's go with Harrison.
Yeah, thank you very much. And thank you, Annie. For all of the arrearage programs, do people have to proactively apply? Or are you, how do they know about the program? How do you, if you have a shortage of funds, pick between people? Is it first come, first serve? How does it all work?
Yeah, so CAP, there is no application. There were criteria that were dictated by the state for us that say how we should apply the funds. For AMP, the arrearage management plan, PIP, which hasn't launched yet, DAC or solar discount. Actually, solar discount was an automatic enrollment. Again, there was specific criteria, some of it based on zip code because you had to live within the disadvantaged community. So that was automatic enrollment. CAP is automatic, but then AMP and PIP will both be based on application. And Kelly, do you want to speak more to that?
Sure. Yes, AMP is based on customer applying. They do have to work with PG&E to apply to that. That is a program that if a customer qualifies, if they're on the phone with a PG&E representative to talk through another payment plan or a billing hardship, the PG&E representative will offer AMP enrollment at the arrearage management plan enrollment at that time. For the percent of income payment plan, I'll add another P there because it's actually the PIP pilot. It's a very small pilot, just to make things really confusing. And so EBCE is working on some different approaches to cast as wide a net as possible. We're looking to potentially model our enrollment off of a recent lottery that the city of Oakland used for their universal basic income. So doing some sort of a lottery sort of system to encourage folks to apply, and then we'll pick those names to ensure diversity in the population.
We are
Okay, so
also running, oh, sorry, we also have an open solicitation out right now. I think it launched in December and it closes later this month for community-based organizations, grants of $30,000 each to support enrollment in these payment programs. The focus there being on AMP, because that is sort of the broadest eligibility.
Can you send us all some user-friendly materials when you're ready with the PIP program so we can get that out to our constituents? And then also, I'd love to get the document about the CBO solicitation. That would be wonderful. Then I didn't understand something about decline to transition. Do people, they have a right to decline to transition to time of use? And what does that mean? Does that last forever, that option, or how, can you explain that a little more?
The tiered E1, which is what the residential non-time of use rate is, does go away. Kelly, you probably know the sunset date, 2025.
Okay.
Something like this.
It is out there. They are working on ways of mitigating some billing impacts, particularly for low income customers in hot climate zones, because their bills are so variable, midday heat types of issues with respect to the time of use rates. But there is, I think there is sort of a long tail there where we will see that eventually time of use rates are the standard for everyone.
Okay, but people can opt out right now.
They are the standard for everyone. If you start a new service, you are automatically started on time of use. Where that E1, that tiered rate, will no longer be available.
Okay, thank you very much. And then I think I just wanted to say that, for Berkeley, I wasn't aware, I didn't put the parts together. This is completely my fault, that we were going to be opting everybody out of the middle tier plan a mere 2 months before we're going to be telling them they're all going to the upper plan. So I think you're going to see more opt-outs from Berkeley because of this confusion about, they all got a letter saying you're all being put in bright choice, then they're going to get something saying you're all going up to this much higher level thing. So I wish I'd understood that better, because I might have pushed our timeline more so we didn't have this awkward 2-month period. It's going to be very confusing for our customers, I think.
We did look at that, and we've definitely already had some lessons learned from the January transition. There is a fairly small population of voluntary Brilliant 100 customers that were in Berkeley, or that are in Berkeley, that transitioned to Bright Choice in January and then are going to go to Renewable 100 come March. It's not that large of a population, which is good, but we are sending them a unique notice that speaks to this, because we identified that edge case and we're like, yeah, that is going to be confusing. So we're trying to message to them a little differently.
Can you give me the basic numbers, like how many people we're talking about? Do we know?
Yeah, it's less than 300 customers.
Oh, okay, thank you.
And that would be inclusive of both residential and commercial. And the commercial timeline for transition to Renewable 100 is further out.
I just happen to be one of the 300, but thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for sampling all of our plans.
Yeah, well, I went ahead and went up, just so everybody knows, but thank you.
Okay, thank you, Member Harrison. Member Monroe, thank you for waiting patiently.
No problem. I had a question. Okay, so I'm trying to, it actually gave me a chance to sit and try to think through how I wanted to phrase this question. Still haven't come up with a good way, because what I want to understand is, what are the limits of EBCE's range going to be? And I'm asking that so when I came in, or when my city came in as Livermore, people from the city of Berkeley seemed to be unaware that Livermore was actually in Alameda County. And as somebody who attended UC Berkeley for a very long time, I have a little bit of a chip on my shoulder about that. So understand, I'm coming sort of with that perspective. Tracy came in. Tracy's right next to Alameda County. We move out to Stockton. That's a very different environment. I'm good with that, but what I want to understand is how we as an organization are meeting the very different needs of the two areas. So one of the problems I think with PG&E is it's just flat out too big. At what point does EBCE get to be too big? And there may be no point, because we manage the issues with bigness differently, with size, sorry. But it feels to me like there's a discussion that needs to be had around boundaries, around inclusion, around recognizing within communities, however large or small, there needs to be, and whatever kind of organization, there needs to be connection, but also recognition of difference. How are we thinking about that as we're moving towards Stockton, or including Stockton?
Fantastic question, Council Member Monroe, and that's actually, I think, why we wanted to put it on the agenda for our next board meeting, to actually have a discussion, less us presenting. I think we do intend to sort of present, but more just to sort of have a conversation amongst the board around, are there limits that, are there effective limits that we want to set? So, I think currently, right, we serve Tracy, and with Stockton, because of the adjacency to Tracy, one, because of the transportation corridors. So if you think about like the Bay Area, the major transportation corridors, and especially for medium and heavy duty goods movement, which is a major sort of area of emphasis for us to drive electrification. You think, you have the Port of Oakland, you have Tracy as a logistics hub, and then you have the Port of Stockton, and Stockton is a logistics hub. So from a transportation electrification perspective, Stockton, Tracy, Oakland, Fremont kind of becomes like, that is a very high value, high impact corridor to try to drive coordinated electrification. And once you go beyond sort of Stockton, there's maybe you want to talk about Manteca, but there's not much beyond, because you're not going to go to Sacramento. Sacramento is a municipal utility, and then Fresno, Bakersfield, those places are actually very far away, right? So you're just not seeing that kind of like adjacency. So I think our logic with Stockton has been extending to Stockton, and potentially even extending to kind of the adjacent unincorporated San Joaquin County, because much of actually a lot of the cities in San Joaquin County are municipal utilities, like Lodi. The city of Lodi is a municipal utility. Southern San Joaquin County they're all municipal utilities. So it's Manteca, Stockton, Tracy are the three sort of population centers in San Joaquin County that are eligible to join, with a couple of smaller cities too. I think the thought is, well, you can extend the logic to going to Tracy to Stockton, but at that point in time, you're sort of like, it's East Bay and East Bay adjacent.
I like that language.
And then, but then there's a separate question that I don't think we need to have an answer to, but there's a separate question around more and more communities in Northern California are interested in community energy. What is our role? I think one of the things that we have, found working with many CCAs is there are areas where local autonomy and having like distributed decision making is really valuable, but there are also areas where there are real economies of scale. And I think, examples of that are power procurement staffing. There are only so many people who are expert in negotiating power purchase agreements for wind and solar. And a lot of those people either work for a bigger CCA or utility. So if you're a small community that wants to form a CCA, you might have a hard time actually finding somebody who lives in Calaveras County who can do that work. Is there a role that we play as a service provider? So if Calaveras County wanted to form a CCA, do you say, well, Calaveras County, you form a CCA and you have, you have some, but are you operated by East Bay Community Energy? Or,
right.
And I think those are questions to think about.
Well, I'm thinking about the JPA as well, and thinking about how, if it's not thought of as a less formal way to think about it is a collective. And there's areas where the collective works as to share resources, and there's areas where you want to really focus the resources very directly. I think that those are the questions. And as you say, there's no good answers, but asking the question and pursuing some answers. Yep. It sounds like we got some work to do. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Any other comments or questions? Yes, Member Tesla.
Yes, the spike that Pleasanton had, it looks like it corresponds with some misinformation that was being chattered on some of our social media. And so there is still a lot of confusion and people are concerned. And then when misinformation gets introduced into the mix, I was surprised to see that big of a spike, but I'm sure that's what it was. They were, there was a lot of concern in the community, and there still is a lot of concern, and a lot of concern around the, that I don't even fully understand, is the solar customers who had solar previously feel that the transition is causing them a much bigger cost. And my understanding is it really isn't coming from EBCE, but is really more of a PG&E. But I think we need some more answers on that for our community.
Understood. I will say that the spike is a little artificial looking. If it's really a change, so it's the comparison between early January and November, and then late January and November. And so it really only increased 0.2% opt-out. But because the overall numbers are so small, it looks big. So I don't actually think there's any spike that occurred, which is why I also wanted to put the total opt-out percentage, which again is still less than 5% for Pleasanton, whereas our overall service territory is about 5.5%. So, but I do, we have limited ability to participate in some of the social media, but we are aware of Pleasanton Rants and Raves. It's a very active Facebook group. We
That's it.
try
Yeah.
to get some fact checking in there, but it's it is what it is, and there's only so much we can do. And then in terms of the solar, I think there's probably people are understandably confused. First, when they were mass enrolled in April in Pleasanton, they would have gotten a true up from PG&E that was not on their normal true up cycle because they were being converted over to our service. And certain people were, it causes some confusion. And then our billing is a monthly billing for generation, and then solar customers, net energy metered customers, who were only with PG&E before are used to an annual. And so I think that does cause some confusion, and we've put out a number of pieces of educational material on the website, videos, but we can certainly do another push for that. But the NEM 3.0 that Melissa spoke to, which is being determined by the California Public Utilities Commission, a lot of people think that's being driven by the investor-owned utilities. Yes, we have, whatever comes out of that in terms of the grid connection charge. We don't have control over that portion, but we are actively participating, as Melissa described, to make certain that we feel our customers are being represented and that they're not getting sort of a bad deal out of this. But that's going to impact customers who are with EBCE, who are just with PG&E. That is something that's sort of bigger than us, even though we're trying to influence it.
Thank you for explaining that. And thank you for being aware of Pleasanton Rants and Raves, because it keeps us all on our toes. But I will also say that in fairness there, somebody amongst the chatter then called your customer service and got some misinformation and then repeated that misinformation. And it was basically saying that city council was getting a kickback. And so that was kind of concerning that information came from the customer service representative and then it ran its course in our community. So, but thank you.
Okay, thank you, Member Testa. Do we have any comments from the public?
Yes, we do. Gina Rose, let me allow her to talk.
Okay, give her
Gina?
3 minutes.
Sorry, I just forgot to lower my hand.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. If that's it, then we go to number 6, committee member and staff announcements, including requests to place items on future board agendas. Do we have any comments or items? No? Okay, I have one. Many of you might have noticed I'm wearing a sling right now. I had surgery on my arm last week. Tore the tendon from my elbow to my bicep, and I had surgery Monday of last week. So I've been driving everybody here at my house crazy because I've been stuck, not being able to go anywhere. But I'm on the mend. I'm doing much better, and hope I'll be up and about very quickly. So I just wanted to let you all know that. And I guess now we're going for adjournment. Our next meeting is April 1st, Friday at 12 p.m. Okay.
I just wanted to wish you well and good health.
Thank you. I'm actually on the mend pretty well. I'm getting out, but after a while, the cast is pretty heavy. So it starts, the sling starts hurting my neck, then it goes down to my back, and I gotta stop for a while. So, but
Here's to good health for all.
Yeah, that's what happens when you turn 50,
Oh, please, please.
Okay, have a great day, everybody.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you
everyone.
all. Thank you, staff, very much. Thank you.